What happens when the person who broke your heart walks back into your life without warning? In a silent school library, two young souls fall in love without saying the words out loud. But just as their hearts begin to speak softly, a storm from the past steps into the hallway. A letter. A father who left. A choice that could shatter everything. Or heal it forever. Will love be strong enough to stand between forgiveness and fear? Stay with me, because this is not just a love story. It is a story about redemption, second chances, and the moment that changes 3 lives forever. Before we dive into the incredible love story, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. I met Grace between dusk and daylight. The school library stood like a frontier chapel. Tall windows. Long shadows. Air thick with paper and quiet hope. I carried a past heavier than my books. Regret pressed against my ribs. I came here seeking redemption in small pages. Grace sat by the history shelves. Sunlight braided through her hair. Her fingers traced the edge of a worn novel. Gentle. Careful. As if stories felt pain. Our eyes met. A flicker. Then retreat. Every afternoon we shared the same table. Silence stretched between us. Soft. Fragile. My pulse grew loud in that sacred hush. Fear walked beside hope. Love felt like open prairie. Beautiful. Endless. Exposed. One evening thunder rolled beyond the windows. Rain struck the glass like restless hands. The lights flickered. Darkness trembled across the ceiling. A book slipped from Grace's grasp. The sound cracked through the stillness. Sharp as a gunshot across empty land. She startled. Her breath quickened. I felt it from across the table. In that flash of dim light I saw more than surprise. I saw history. Hurt. Battles fought in silence. My chair scraped the floor. Too loud. Too sudden. Her eyes lifted to mine. Wide. Shimmering. Shock held us captive. The storm outside raged like every memory we carried. I sensed her fear of heartbreak. It mirrored my own. I stepped closer. Slow. Careful as crossing fragile ice. The scent of rain drifted through an open pane. Cool air brushed my skin. My hands trembled. Grace whispered my name. Soft as dawn over wild fields. In that single breath, our silence shattered. Hearts spoke. Not in grand speeches. In presence. In shared trembling. I reached for the fallen book. Our fingers touched. Warmth surged through the cold room. A frontier of doubt began to fall. She exhaled. I felt her trust unfold like sunrise after endless night. Outside, thunder faded. Inside, something powerful rose. Redemption found me in her steady gaze. Resilience lived in her gentle courage. Love stood between us. Quiet. Immense. And as her hand remained in mine, as the rain softened into blessing, as the library held our fragile confession within its wooden ribs, I felt the past loosen its grip and the future open like a wide, untamed horizon waiting for us to step forward together into its trembling light. The horizon trembled before us. Grace stepped closer. Close enough for me to feel the warmth of her breath. The library smelled of rain and old cedar. Pages fluttered in a distant aisle. The world narrowed to the space between our hands. Her fingers tightened around mine. A question lived in that touch. So did an answer. My heart pounded like hooves across open land. Wild. Certain. She searched my face. Not for charm. For truth. I gave her the only truth I owned. A quiet nod. A steady gaze. The light steadied above us. Soft gold replaced the trembling gray. Outside, water streamed down the windows like tears finally released. Grace drew a breath that seemed to carry years inside it. pain, hope, courage stitched together. My father left when storms sounded like that, she said. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Yet it struck deep. I felt the weight of her memory settle into my chest. Heavy. Sacred. I understood absence. I understood nights that stretched without comfort. I moved my chair beside hers. Not across. Beside. Our shoulders brushed. Electric. Tender. Silence returned, yet it felt different now. Full instead of empty. She leaned her head against me. Careful at first. Then certain. The storm outside faded into a gentle rhythm. Inside, another storm calmed. I realized love rarely arrives with fireworks. It arrives with understanding. With shared scars. With the brave decision to stay. Grace lifted her face. Rainlight shimmered in her eyes. Stay, she whispered. One word. Simple. Vast. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. Firm. Protective. In that quiet library, among forgotten stories and worn wooden tables, we began writing our own. Not with ink. With presence. And as footsteps echoed faintly down the corridor, as the door creaked open somewhere beyond the shelves, as the ordinary world threatened to return and test this fragile courage, I felt her heartbeat steady against mine, matching rhythm, matching promise, and I knew the next moment would ask something greater from us both, something bold and irreversible, and I drew breath to answer it. Footsteps neared. Slow. Measured. The librarian's silhouette passed the far aisle. A reminder that the world still existed beyond us. Grace eased back, though her hand remained in mine. Her thumb traced the lines of my palm. Soft. Absent-minded. Intimate. My pulse steadied. Resolve settled deep in my bones. I am tired of running from storms, I said. The words felt like crossing a border. No return. Her eyes widened. Fear flickered there. Then hope rose stronger. You carry so much, she whispered. So did she. I saw it in the careful way she held herself. As if joy required permission. A chair scraped somewhere behind the shelves. Laughter echoed from the hallway. Life pressing in. Grace's grip tightened. For a second, discomfort rippled through her. Old reflex. Old memory. I shifted closer. Our knees touched beneath the table. Grounded. Steady. You are safe with me, I said. Not as a promise made from pride. As a vow shaped by understanding pain. Her breath trembled. Then steadied against my collarbone. The air felt warmer. The scent of rain faded into polished wood and ink. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded letter. Edges worn. Creased from rereading. My father sent this last year, she said. I never answered. Shock rippled through me. Not from anger. From the weight of choice resting in her hands. She placed the letter between us. A frontier of forgiveness. A past waiting to be faced. Her eyes searched mine again. Asking whether love meant standing beside her in that reckoning. My heart surged. Strong. Certain. Outside, clouds parted just enough for a blade of sunlight to cut through the glass. It fell across the letter. Across our joined hands. Grace inhaled deeply. Courage gathering like dawn over wide plains. She began to unfold the paper, and as the first line revealed itself, as her voice prepared to shape the words aloud, as the moment balanced between healing and heartbreak, I felt the future shifting once more, opening wider, asking us to step forward together into whatever truth waited within that trembling page. Opening wider, asking us to step forward together into whatever truth waited within that trembling page. Grace's fingers shook. Paper rustled like dry grass before wind. She read the first line silently. Her jaw tightened. A breath caught in her throat. I felt the shift instantly. The room sharpened. Every sound magnified. A clock ticked above the reference desk. Slow. Relentless. Her eyes moved across the page. Moisture gathered along her lashes. Pain surfaced. Raw. He says he regrets leaving, she whispered. The words hovered between us. Heavy as iron. I imagined a man chasing redemption too late. I imagined a child waiting by a window. Grace lowered the letter. Confusion flickered across her face. Hope battled caution. The library lights hummed softly. Outside, sunlight stretched wider across the glass. He wants to see me, she said. Shock moved through her body like a cold current. Her knee bounced beneath the table. Her breathing thinned. I placed my hand over hers again. Firm. Anchored. You decide the pace, I said. You decide the door. She searched my expression for doubt. Found none. A tear slipped down her cheek. Warm. Bright. She laughed softly through it. A fragile, rising sound. For the first time I feel strong, she said. Not because fear vanished. Because she faced it. I felt pride swell inside me. Not possessive. Protective. Grace folded the letter carefully. Placed it back into her bag. The decision remained unfinished. Yet something inside her settled. She turned toward me fully now. No distance. No shield. Whatever happens, she said, I want you there. The request carried weight. Commitment. Trust earned in silence. Footsteps echoed again near the entrance. Students returning. Chairs shifting. Ordinary life rushing back in waves. Grace stood. Pulled me up with her. Our hands stayed joined. Visible now. Unhidden. A quiet declaration without spectacle. As we walked toward the exit, light pouring through the tall windows, air fresh with promise, I sensed another storm waiting beyond these walls, larger than thunder, larger than memory, and as Grace paused at the doorway, squeezing my hand once more before stepping forward into whatever awaited her courage and our fragile, rising love, I felt the next trial drawing close, ready to test the strength we had just begun to build. Ready to test the strength we had just begun to build. The hallway buzzed with voices. Locker slammed. Shoes squeaked against polished floors. Grace slowed. Her hand tightened around mine again. At the far end of the corridor stood a man I recognized from old photographs she once showed me. Broad shoulders. Graying hair. Uncertain posture. Her father. Shock rippled through her body. I felt it travel from her fingertips into my palm. He looked smaller than the stories. Less like a villain. More like a man carrying years of regret. Students passed between us and him. Blurs of backpacks and laughter. The world remained indifferent to this collision of past and present. Grace's breathing grew shallow. The scent of floor polish and damp coats filled the air. My own heart pounded hard enough to drown the noise. He took a hesitant step forward. Stopped. Grace, he said. Her name sounded fragile in his voice. Pain flashed across her face. So did longing. I moved slightly in front of her. Not to block. To stand beside. She squeezed my hand once. A silent signal of courage gathering. I read your letter, she said. The corridor quieted in my ears. As if the world leaned in. Her father swallowed hard. His eyes shone with something close to shame. I came to say it in person, he replied. Grace trembled. Yet she remained upright. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, falling across the three of us like a witness. She stepped forward. Pulling me with her. Her shoulder brushed mine. Strength shared. You left, she said softly. The words held no accusation. Only truth. He nodded. A man facing his own frontier. Silence expanded. Thick. Electric. I felt the weight of the moment pressing against her heart. Pressing against mine. Grace drew in a long breath. The kind taken before crossing a boundary that changes everything. And as she opened her mouth to speak again, as emotion gathered behind her steady eyes, as her father reached out with a trembling hand that hovered between apology and hope, I sensed the next choice rising like thunder over open plains, vast and irreversible, and I braced myself to walk with her into whatever she decided to say next. Grace looked at his outstretched hand. Then at me. Her fingers loosened from mine for a brief second. Air rushed cold against my palm. Discomfort flared inside my chest. Sharp. Sudden. This was the frontier of love. Not possession. Choice. She stepped forward alone. Her father's hand trembled in midair. Students moved around us in slow motion. A locker door slammed somewhere behind. Grace faced him fully now. Small in frame. Immense in presence. I needed you, she said. 4 words. Clear. Unshielded. The man before her seemed to shrink beneath their weight. His shoulders folded inward. Regret carved deep lines across his face. I know, he answered. Voice breaking like dry earth meeting rain. The hallway felt warmer. Heavier. Grace inhaled again. Steadier this time. I am learning to forgive, she continued. Not for you. For me. Her strength stunned me. Not loud. Unshakable. Her father lowered his hand slowly. Respectful. Humbled. I want to try again, he said. Hope flickered in his eyes. Fear too. Grace glanced back at me. Not seeking permission. Seeking grounding. I gave her a small nod. Presence without pressure. She turned back to him. Tears shimmered yet her chin stayed lifted. Then we move slowly, she said. Truth first. Consistency next. The words sounded older than our years. Wise. Measured. Her father nodded quickly. Grateful for any opening. A bell rang in the distance. Clear. Demanding. The corridor stirred back to full life. Grace stepped back toward me. Her hand found mine again. Warmer now. I felt something shift between us. Trust deepened by fire. She faced him once more. We begin here, she said. No embrace. No dramatic reunion. Just a beginning. And as he agreed, as plans formed in quiet tones, as the hallway emptied and light poured stronger through the windows, I realized love was expanding beyond us, stretching to include broken histories and second chances, and as Grace leaned lightly into my side, steady after the storm yet aware that healing demanded patience and work beyond this single day, I sensed another test waiting beyond the school doors, another horizon calling us forward, and I tightened my grip gently, ready to meet whatever came next beside her. Ready to meet whatever came next beside her. We stepped outside together. The air carried the scent of wet pavement and new sunlight. Clouds drifted apart like curtains after a long performance. Grace released a slow breath. Her body felt lighter against mine. Yet I sensed the tremor still living beneath her calm. Her father followed a few steps behind. Not intruding. Waiting. Cars moved along the street beyond the gates. Ordinary life continued without ceremony. Grace turned to him. There is a cafe across the road, she said. Her voice held steady resolve. He nodded. Hope flickered again. We crossed together. 3 shadows stretching across bright asphalt. Inside the cafe, warmth wrapped around us. Coffee beans. Soft music. Low conversation. Grace chose a table near the window. Light fell across her face, illuminating both strength and vulnerability. Her father sat opposite her. I remained at her side. close enough to feel her heartbeat through our joined hands. Steam rose from untouched cups. Time slowed. He began to speak of mistakes, of fear, of running from responsibility. Grace listened, not interrupting, not collapsing. Each confession felt like a stone placed carefully between them, building a bridge. At one point his voice cracked. Tears gathered without shame. Grace's expression softened. Pain transformed into understanding. I needed honesty, she said gently. Not perfection. Her words carried wisdom beyond youth. He reached across the table. This time she allowed his hand to rest near hers. Close. Not yet touching. I watched the fragile architecture of forgiveness rise. Layer by careful layer. Outside, sunlight brightened. Inside, another storm quieted. Grace leaned slightly into me. A reminder that love stands firm while other bonds mend. As conversation deepened, as laughter unexpectedly surfaced through tears, as the past loosened its grip inch by inch. Ready to meet whatever came next beside her. We stepped outside together. The air carried the scent of wet pavement and new sunlight. Clouds drifted apart like curtains after a long performance. Grace released a slow breath. Her body felt lighter against mine. Yet I sensed the tremor still living beneath her calm. Her father followed a few steps behind. Not intruding. Waiting. Cars moved along the street beyond the gates. Ordinary life continued without ceremony. Grace turned to him. There is a cafe across the road, she said. Her voice held steady resolve. He nodded. Hope flickered again. We crossed together. 3 shadows stretching across bright asphalt. Inside the cafe, warmth wrapped around us. Coffee beans. Soft music. Low conversation. Grace chose a table near the window. Light fell across her face, illuminating both strength and vulnerability. Her father sat opposite her. I remained at her side, close enough to feel her heartbeat through our joined hands. Steam rose from untouched cups. Time slowed. He began to speak of mistakes, of fear, of running from responsibility. Grace listened, not interrupting, not collapsing. Each confession felt like a stone placed carefully between them, building a bridge. At one point his voice cracked. Tears gathered without shame. Grace's expression softened. Pain transformed into understanding. I needed honesty, she said gently. Not perfection. Her words carried wisdom beyond youth. He reached across the table. This time she allowed his hand to rest near hers. Close. Not yet touching. I watched the fragile architecture of forgiveness rise. Layer by careful layer. Outside, sunlight brightened. Inside, another storm quieted. Grace leaned slightly into me. A reminder that love stands firm while other bonds mend. As conversation deepened, as laughter unexpectedly surfaced through tears, as the past loosened its grip inch by inch, I realized love is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to remain present despite it. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom. And redemption begins the moment someone chooses responsibility over pride. Grace closed her eyes. Peace settled across her face like warm light. In that quiet room, surrounded by stories of distant frontiers and brave souls, I understood something lasting. The past shapes us. It never has to chain us. When hearts speak softly. When hands remain joined through discomfort. When truth replaces silence. Even the deepest wounds can become doorways to strength. That is the lesson our story leaves behind. Love requires patience. Healing requires courage. Staying requires sincerity. And when people choose all three, even broken histories can bloom into something beautiful, steady, and strong.